I'm Nick. I'm a young employee at Mitchell Motors, a major car manufacturer. I've loved cars since I was a kid, and after working hard to gain knowledge, I joined this company. My efforts were recognized, and now I'm part of the development team, leading a busy but fulfilling life. Today, after finishing a long meeting for a new product project and about to leave my seat, I was stopped by my manager, Tom. Nick, do you have a moment? Yes, Tom. How can I help you? Don't be so tense. It's not a big deal. You know the part we're using for the new product in the project you're on, the one we discussed in the meeting. Oh, that part. Is there something about it? Yeah, as mentioned in the meeting, we're planning to outsource it. I want you to take charge of selecting the contractor. What, me? I couldn't help but raise my voice in surprise. Seeing me flustered, Tom smiled gently and patted my shoulder. Life is all about experiences. But isn't it too soon for me to handle such an important task? This outsourcing deal is worth $100 million. Can I really manage it? Don't worry. Here's a list of candidates. All of these companies are reliable and have excellent technology. Other employees will help with the negotiations and contract procedures. I want you to visit these companies and develop your eye for quality. Develop my eye. Yes, it's a big deal, but it's a necessary experience for your future. I trust you, so go with confidence. If you have any problems or doubts, you can always consult me. Encouraged by his smile, I left the meeting room still feeling nervous. The list he gave me included companies we have had long relationships with, all trustworthy and technologically capable. If I choose from this list, there's little chance of failure. From that day, I spent a few days contacting the companies on the list and visiting them. Today, I'm visiting the last company on the list. Nick, we've been expecting you. Please come this way. A young female employee politely guided me to the reception room. Probably in her mid-20s, she respectfully handed me her business card. Nice to meet you, my name is Anna. I looked at the card from her. I thought she might be in sales, but she was actually in the technical department, which surprised me a little. Did you think it was unusual for a woman from the technical department to come out? I must have shown it on my face. She hit the nail on the head. I wondered if it was rude to be surprised by her gender, but it would be strange to lie and try to cover it up. I decided to be honest and nodded. Yes, I thought it was a bit unusual to see a woman in a technical role in this industry. I'm sorry if that was rude. It's fine. I hear that often and don't mind. Nick, can we discuss the details of the project? Of course. Please take a look at this material. I handed her the documents and briefly explained the project. As expected of the technical department, her understanding was quick. Her questions were specific and precise, and the conversation flowed smoothly, leaving me with a clear mind. After the meeting, I left her company feeling much better. Of all the companies I visited, this one seemed the most promising. I thought about consulting Tom about it while glancing at my watch. It was just before noon, lunchtime. I decided to gather my thoughts over lunch before heading back to the office. I walked a bit and spotted a small diner. I walked in and found that more than half of the seats were already occupied. I sat at a table for two, placed my bag in the storage area, and looked over the lunch menu. After some deliberation, I ordered the daily special. While casually sipping water and glancing around, I noticed that the diner had become completely full. A few people were waiting near the entrance, and the staff were asking customers if they could share tables. A waiter came to me with the same request, and having no reason to refuse, I agreed. Soon, the waiter brought my table mate, and our eyes met, causing me to gasp in surprise. Oh, we recognized each other and exclaimed in unison. It was Anna, sitting across from me, looking slightly embarrassed. Anna greeted me and took the seat in front of me. What a coincidence, she said. Yes, it's lunchtime, so I thought I'd have a meal before heading back to the office. That's right. This place is great. Affordable, generous portions, and delicious. I highly recommend it. Anna, clearly a regular, ordered without even looking at the menu, then placed her phone on the table. Her phone had a faded blue minivan keychain, which caught my eye. Isn't that our company's car? Yes, I've loved this model since I was a kid. My dad bought me this keychain when I was in elementary school, and it's very special to me, so I still keep it. Her eyes sparkled as she spoke, revealing her genuine love for cars. My late father worked in your company's development department. He was involved in developing this car and often talked to me about it, which sparked my interest in the automotive industry. That's interesting. My dad also worked on that minivan project, so they might have known each other. Wow, that would be quite a connection. Both you and your dad work for the same company. That's amazing. Well, maybe. But you're amazing too, honestly. Isn't it tough being a woman in this industry's technical field? Yes, it can be challenging. People often say because you're a woman or even though you're a woman, and it gets tiring. But it makes me want to prove them wrong even more, she said cheerfully. Her demeanor was admirable, and I found it impressive. Eventually, I decided to proceed with contracting Anna's company as our top choice. All the companies had great technology and reliable representatives, but her company stood out the most. Her genuine passion for cars made me feel that we could create something great together. As we moved towards finalizing the contract, I frequently visited her company to discuss specifications and conditions. Over these discussions, Anna and I became quite friendly. After our meetings, we often ended up at the same diner, chatting about various topics. These days, when everything seemed to be going smoothly, I was preparing for an internal meeting the next day. I stopped by the factory and noticed I was missing some documents related to the contract with Anna's company. Apparently, I had forgotten to collect them from her company. It was completely my fault. Feeling a bit guilty, I contacted Anna to set up an appointment. She kindly agreed, saying, "It might take a little while to prepare, so you might have to wait, but it's no problem." If I went back to headquarters first, it would be past her company's closing time. Feeling slightly rude but needing the documents, I headed to her company in my work clothes. Anna was still preparing the documents. A young female clerk, possibly a new employee, led me to the usual reception room. Just as I reached for the iced coffee she brought, a hand from the side snatched it away. "It's cold." Before I could react, someone splashed the coffee on me. I had no idea what was happening. Confused, I looked up to see a middle-aged man with a sneer holding the empty cup. "That dirty work uniform might be a bit cleaner now. Be grateful." "What? Whether you're a subcontractor or a lowly worker, who gave you permission to enter the reception room? The representative from Mitchell Motors will be here soon, so get out. Get out now, you slow-witted loser." The middle-aged man twisted his face into a crooked smile, grabbed my arm, and forcibly yanked me to my feet, causing me to wince in pain. Just then, the reception room door burst open. "Brandon, what are you doing?" "Huh. I'm teaching this lowly worker a lesson." "Get lost, you useless woman." "Brandon, what are you saying?" "This person is the representative from Mitchell Motors. Let go of him immediately." "There's no way. A guy in a dirty work uniform with a face like a lowly worker can't possibly be an employee of a prestigious company." "Anna, have you lost your mind?" The manager, Brandon, roughly let go of my arm. Then he mockingly tapped his temple with his index finger, as if to imply she was crazy. I was stunned, but seeing him ridicule Anna made me furious. "The one who's crazy is you. Can't you read the company name on this uniform?" I pointed to the chest area of my work uniform, stained with coffee. There, of course, was the name Mitchell Motors. The color drained from Brandon's previously arrogant face. Granted, it was urgent, so I came in this outfit, which was my mistake. But throwing coffee on someone is absurd. Maybe you're the one who's lost it. I mimicked his earlier gesture, tapping my temple with my finger. I knew stooping to his level wasn't ideal, but I couldn't help responding. Brandon's face turned beet red with anger. He looked like he wanted to yell at me but barely held back. I looked at him with cold disdain. "You told me to leave, so I'm going. Goodbye." I left the reception room and headed towards the entrance. Unfortunately, the sky was overcast, and it was raining heavily. I didn't have an umbrella, and I didn't want to take the bus in my coffee-stained clothes. Just as I was about to call a taxi, I heard someone calling my name. "Nick." I turned to see Anna running towards me with an umbrella and some documents. She reached me, out of breath, and handed me the umbrella, looking worried. "Nick, are you okay? Did you get burned?" "No, thankfully it was iced coffee." "Did you come all the way here just to bring me an umbrella?" "Well, that, and I wanted to give you these documents." but I guess you don't need them anymore after what Brandon did. Thank you. But about the contract, it's complicated. It's a big deal between companies, and I can't make a decision here and now. Don't hold back, Nick. If the contract is canceled, it serves him right, she laughed, as if a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. I was surprised by this unexpected reaction from Anna, whom I always thought of as serious. The rain is heavy, and you're soaked. If you don't mind, I can give you a ride. No, that's too much, and you're still on the clock, right? Don't worry about it. I plan to submit my resignation tomorrow. What? Resignation? You're quitting. I had enough of Brandon. Today was the final straw. If you don't mind, can I vent to you on the way? Sure. Feeling somewhat overwhelmed by her determination, I nodded. We walked to the parking lot, and she unlocked a white car. Please get in. Thank you. I hesitantly got into her car. Anna, sitting in the driver's seat, asked, Is it okay if I take you to your company, Nick? I nodded in response. She started the engine, set the destination on the GPS, and began driving. The guy who threw the coffee, Brandon, is a power-harassing, incompetent nepotism hire. Nepotism. Yeah, he's the nephew of our company's president, Mr. Thompson. He always flaunts that connection, bosses everyone around, and yells at subordinates without reason. Yet he's terrible at his job. Wow, I can't believe there's still someone like that. Does the upper management know and ignore it? I'm not sure. Our company is pretty old-fashioned and doesn't take compliance seriously. There's no internal reporting system for employees to directly talk to upper management without going through their bosses. Most managers just try to stay on Brandon's good side, so nothing gets reported. He's basically unchecked. She let out a heavy sigh. There was a veteran employee who fought to report his misdeeds to upper management, but Brandon crushed him by deliberately causing a loss and blaming it on the veteran, forcing him to resign. What? He caused a loss just to get rid of an employee he didn't like. Yes, it's unbelievable, but he doesn't care about the company as long as he can harass those he dislikes. It's truly unbelievable that the company lets this go on. It really is. Today, he barged in trying to steal the credit for the contract with your company without knowing anything about the project. Despite the fact that the whole company has been talking about this contract, he didn't know about it until today. I've been submitting reports and discussing it in meetings, but he must have ignored the reports and zoned out during the meetings. He has no interest in the job, and then he throws coffee on you. That's quite something. The power of assumptions, right? He probably thought the representative of a big company like yours must be an elite in a sharp suit, so he couldn't believe that someone in work clothes could be the representative, even though the company's name was on the uniform. That's Brandon for you. Many employees have left because of him, whether they were forced out like the veteran or left because they couldn't stand him anymore. Those who stayed are either trying to curry favor with him or just avoiding trouble. I love this industry, so I endured his tyranny, but I've reached my limit. I see. I didn't realize there was such a problematic person in your company. I was tasked with assessing people and companies, but I still have a lot to learn. Don't be too hard on yourself. It's impossible to know the internal dynamics from an outsider's perspective. Only a detective or an officer might be able to figure that out. She sighed deeply, probably one of many sighs she's let out. She's likely been struggling with this for a long time. I wondered if there was something I could do for her. There is one thing, though. It might bring me down to Brandon's level, which I wanted to avoid if possible. But desperate times call for desperate measures. After a moment of thought, I decided to speak up. If you had a way to get back at Brandon, would you take it? Anna looked at me with a blank expression. She might have wondered why I suddenly brought this up. After a brief pause, she nodded. If there's a way, I'd like to see him face consequences. Someone like him ruins the environment for making good products. I don't want to waste the efforts of my colleagues and predecessors who fought against him. But Nick, what's your plan? It's simple. We'll fight fire with fire. It's a bit childish, but since he started it, I think it's justified. She looked puzzled, but I smiled reassuringly. After she dropped me off at my company, I headed straight to a certain room. As I walked, the employees I passed seemed surprised by my appearance and the odd air about me. I knocked on the door of a specific room without paying any attention to their reactions. A few days later, under the pretext of a business meeting, I called Anna to our company's conference room. As I led the way and knocked on the conference room door, I could sense Anna gasp behind me. Mr. Mitchell. Inside the meeting room was Mr. Mitchell, our company president. Anna, being a car enthusiast, must have recognized him. She stood there, stunned. You're Anna, right? My son has told me a lot about you. Your son? She seemed confused, trying to remember if she knew anyone with the last name Mitchell. Mr. Mitchell looked at me and smiled. The man standing next to you. Wait, really? She looked at me, and I nodded. Really, yes, really. I heard your father worked at the same company, but I had no idea you were his son. But your last name is different. She looked puzzled, glancing between Mr. Mitchell and me. I used my mother's maiden name, Anderson, at work to keep my position as the president's son under wraps. My real name is Nick Mitchell. Only a few executives and some employees know about it. I was born into a privileged family with parents who, despite their busy schedules, showered me with love. I love cars and have always admired my father, who works hard for the company. I worked hard to follow in his footsteps. However, being in a perfect environment often led to unwarranted jealousy and envy. When I did well on exams or entrance tests, people would accuse me of using my parents' influence. The same went for sports and the arts. Even compliments like "your parents are so accomplished, so of course you turn out great too," didn't bring me any joy. Friends would jokingly call me rich boy, but it stung. In high school, my first girlfriend used me to brag, saying, "My boyfriend is the president's son." Being the president's only son was a huge burden for me, and that's why I wanted to hide my identity and prove myself on my own while I was young. This guy here is stubborn. He insisted on not using any connections, took our company's entrance exam on his own, and joined the development team by his merit. Though I did ask Tom from the development department to give him tasks outside his main duties to broaden his experience. Sending him to handle the contract with your company was part of that. I told him to develop his ability to evaluate other companies and people. I never expected him to come back with coffee spilled on him. That was truly unacceptable behavior from our employee. I deeply apologize. It's not you who needs to apologize. It needs to come from Brandon himself. Yes, you're right. Anna nodded with a conflicted expression, likely thinking that Brandon would never apologize. We're thinking of giving him a bit of a scare. A scare, yes. If he shows remorse and apologizes, that would be ideal. But from what I've heard, he doesn't seem the type. So we'll go directly to the main person, President Mr. Thompson. My son tells me that many talented employees have left because of Brandon's tyranny. Your company is reputable and skilled, and we'd hate to lose that. To help your company improve, we'll use the contract as leverage and tell them we can't trust a company that ignores compliance issues. He paused and smiled kindly, a look I recognized from home, not from his role as the president. Also, Hannah, your father was a valued employee of mine. He often talked about you. I can't stand by while his precious daughter is treated this way. Let me help. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. I appreciate your support. The meeting was set for a week later in the same reception room at Anna's company, after business hours. Seeing Brandon's dismayed face upon seeing me and the confused look on Mr. Thompson's face was somewhat amusing. Anna, attending under the pretense of being the contract manager, looked tense. Hello, Brandon. Good to see you again so soon. Hello, Brandon, Mr. Thompson added. My son mentioned you took care of him recently. We both turned to Brandon and greeted him with cheerful smiles. He looked slightly puzzled to be greeted by both of us. My son, you say? I don't quite follow. Yes, it's only been a few days. My son, who rudely showed up in your reception room in his work clothes, received your attention. You even went out of your way to pour coffee on him to clean up his dirty uniform. At his words, Brandon finally realized who I was. His confused face turned bright red, and he glared at me with a hostile expression. His son? You? What's with that attitude towards the president and his son? What did you do to him the other day? I have no idea. I was there, Anna interjected firmly. She, who had been silent until then, spoke up in a firm voice. Brandon glared at her as if to say, don't say anything unnecessary, but Anna, resolute in her decision to resign if necessary, didn't care. Nick was waiting in the reception room while I prepared documents. Brandon barged in, yelling, "Your dirty work uniform looks a bit cleaner now, be grateful." When I arrived, Nick was drenched in coffee, and Brandon was shouting at him, "Is this true? It's a misunderstanding." "No, she's right." He grabbed my arm and tried to throw me out, saying this wasn't a place for a subcontractor or lowly worker like me. "Your company certainly has impressive employee training," I said, cutting off Brandon's attempt at making an excuse and forcing him into silence. Mr. Thompson turned pale. "What have you done? Apologize now." "I didn't realize he was a client." "That's no excuse." Mr. Thompson forced him to apologize. It seemed Mr. Thompson had some sense of propriety. I'd admired Brandon's audacity to still try to defy me in this situation. Seeing this as my cue, I spoke up. "In regards to the coffee incident, an apology would suffice. The stain was cleaned, and it's not a reason to terminate the contract. However, Brandon, you mentioned you didn't realize I was a client, right? So what that implies, it would be acceptable to treat your own company's employees or subcontractors that way." "Mr. Thompson, haven't you noticed an increase in resignations from Brandon's department lately? Given his behavior, it's easy to imagine what goes on under his leadership. Personally, I wouldn't want to work under someone like that. We've only heard brief accounts, so we're not making any assumptions, but I believe a good company is built by good employees. An employee who mistreats others is a cancer. In today's world, you never know where information might leak from. If it does, it could cause significant damage to the company. We've had a long relationship with your company and don't want to lose that. I strongly recommend conducting an internal investigation." "You're right. This is very concerning. I had no idea. I will investigate internally, and if what you said is true, there will be severe consequences." "What? You're going to believe an outsider over your own nephew? Listen, this isn't school. Acting like a bully at your age is disgraceful. The investigation will determine the truth, but until then, you're on house arrest." Mr. Thompson spoke with disappointment. Brandon's defense was correct. The words of an outsider alone wouldn't serve as proof. However, ironically, his own attitude was the most damning evidence. The investigation reached out not only to current employees but also to those who had resigned. The results, as expected, were quite revealing. 6 months passed. Anna and I had been busy with work and hadn't seen each other in a while, so we planned to meet for dinner today. Of course, the dinner spot was our usual diner. As I looked over the menu, which now featured some new items, I heard someone call my name, "Nick." I looked up. "Anna, it's been a while. You look great." "Really? Thanks. I'm enjoying my work a lot, thanks to you and your father." "I'm glad to hear that. We kept in touch via email and phone, but I was worried about you. By the way, what happened to Brandon?" We had grown even closer, frequently exchanging personal messages. We both still love cars and remain dedicated to our work, maintaining a relationship that feels like comrades in arms. Even after learning that I'm the son of a major company's president, she treats me the same. These days, I find my relationship with her to be very comforting. I haven't told you the whole story. Brandon was transferred to the factory. Initially, they considered firing him, but they decided it was safer to keep him where Mr. Thompson could keep an eye on him. Is it safe to keep him in the company? There's a foreman at the factory, an old friend of Mr. Thompson. If anything happens, Mr. Thompson will hear about it right away. Brandon can't bully anyone there. The foreman is strict and intimidating, and Brandon can't stand up to strong people. I see. That's one way to handle it. It's probably the best way to straighten him out. Exactly. Those who supported his misconduct were also punished, but things are improving. Everyone is motivated to make top-quality products again. One day, I'll make something that will impress you, so be prepared." She smiled proudly, looking radiant and beautiful. Life is unpredictable. Anna, who once considered quitting, now shines with enthusiasm, and the man who caused so much trouble faced his consequences. Life can change for better or worse, depending on our decisions and actions. It's time for me to take a leap too. With a sense of determination, I took out a pair of movie tickets from my bag.